So I do apologise for the delays. There's been things that have obviously cropped up, and I felt that they were a bit time sensitive. And even though I could have done more videos in a day, the downside is just YouTube then doesn't give out notifications, and you guys then don't know that I've done a video. I see so many comments that are like, have you heard about this, or have you seen that, or could you do a video about this? And I've already done it, and because you haven't been notified, you don't know. So anyway, let's go. So they woke the next morning, hoping it was all a nightmare, but Sean was still gone. Jared called the investigators and asked them to come over to discuss what they had found the night before. Before the investigators arrived, Jamie, AJ's mother, arrived with some food. On her way, she had called the high school guidance counsellor to let them know that Sean had passed away the night before and that Maria and AJ would not be in school that day. She also said that Maria and AJ would need several days off and quite possibly some extra help when they returned. The guidance counsellor was really upset and said she would take care of everything. Jamie came in and started cleaning up the kitchen for Ramona. While sweeping around the kitchen table, she noticed a very large handprint on the window of the back door. She stopped and stared at it for a moment. Huh, she thought. That's really large and in a weird spot. Why would an adult place their hand on the window pane so high? For what? She put her hand up next to the print and saw it was much larger than her own hand, and she called Ramona over to take a look. Ramona agreed that it was an adult print and it didn't belong to anyone in the house. It wasn't just a print, it seemed like there was something on the hand, a residue or a film of some sort that made the print really stand out. Ramona said she would show the investigators when they arrived. At that point, Ramona showed Jamie the garbage bags with the bluish handles, and they both went through all the boxes of trash bags in the house. They all had red handles. Ramona exclusively shop for garbage bags at Costco and brought hundreds at a time. Where did these bags come from? The investigation team arrived at the house. Some went upstairs and then went back to the yard to look around, and two sat at the dining room table and interviewed both Maria and Ramona, one after the other. There was one female investigator and one male at the dining table. They asked if Sean had any enemies, if he had been bullied, and asked if he had had a bad day at school. They showed Ramona a video of Sean walking the hall with a buddy at the middle school, and nothing seemed out of the norm. He was bouncing around and joking with his friend. This video helped them identify the jacket, flannel, and the shorts he was wearing that day. The selfie he took when he submitted his homework identified the shirt he was wearing, but they weren't given that picture from the school until about 3 weeks later. The jacket and flannel were found hanging together in the house, and they could not locate the shirt and shorts. They stayed for about an hour questioning both Ramona and Maria about Sean and his state of mind on his last day. Maria and Ramona dutifully answered every question they could, hoping that any information they provided would help them figure out what happened to Sean. They had taken Sean's iPhone, laptop, and iPad the night before. They asked if the family knew the password to get into the iPhone, but they did not. They tried a few things, but couldn't figure it out. The investigator said they would take care of it. Ramona asked if they were going to talk to Sean's friends. They said they would. She gave them contact information for his close buddies. Jamie was washing the dishes at the sink and eavesdropping. She couldn't help but think that they were not taking the family's concerns seriously, as each response from the investigators seemed to poo-poo the family and circle back to suicide. She was confused as to why they weren't acknowledging the family's concerns. Ramona asked them to take the underwear she found and had bagged the night before. They reluctantly took them, but did not provide a receipt. She also pointed out the handprint on the back door and asked them to lift the prints to see if they could find a match. There hadn't been any fingerprints taken the night before, and she didn't understand why they didn't take any, or how they could have missed it. They lifted the fingerprints and said that they would send them out for testing. The two investigators that had been at the table joined their colleagues outside. They congregated underneath the swing set for a few minutes and had a discussion. They walked back to the house, gave their condolences, and headed out. The family was left without any direction, guidance, any answers whatsoever. Was there even an investigation? Why were they leaving? Ramona and Jamie went into the backyard and looked around. They both found themselves looking up at the houses with second floors that could peer directly into their backyard and see everything. They counted 6. 6 houses with a direct line of sight into the yard at all times from the second floor. Who was watching? Ramona called the FBI. A few weeks later, the lead investigator would tell them that they did get a good print from the lift of the hand, but that there weren't any matches in the system. A month later, when they came back for more prints, he said there weren't any good prints lifted, and therefore nothing viable to test. The family does not know if the initial handprint was ever sent for testing, and they hadn't been given any documentation to support that it was. Sean's underwear were also never sent out for testing, and they don't know what happened to those either. So was this being taken seriously? Or had they already made their mind up? We see in a lot of cases, don't we, where law enforcement, they make a decision on what they feel happened. It might even be that there's a murder and they feel that someone did it, like in the Ricky Neve case in the UK, happened not far from where I live. And yeah, you know, they very quickly decided that it was the mum. They went into the mum's house, they looked at what a shithole it was and decided, bang, she did it. And, you know, that was never solved because they could never prove it was the mum because it weren't her. And it didn't get solved for 40 years nearly later. And it turned out that it was a young kiddie who'd killed Ricky. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, this situation is exactly the same thing happening here. Could it have been some of these people who had an issue with Sean at school, who he'd had altercations with the mums previously? You know, the little brother who said a friend came round and was punching Sean. You know, that we know that Sean wanted to be president. He had this thought that he was going to be president one day. And he's dressed up in, you know, his father's clothes and hung in the garden almost like, you know, on show. You know, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to unpack. There's one more of these that I will go through with you tomorrow. And once we've gone through that, we will go over the whole lot and see what we can come up with. Because, again, there's a lot to unpack. If you haven't looked at the rest, look at the playlist, check it out, and this little boy needs justice. One way or another. Either he needs justice or his family need help to find peace. But at the moment, something's amiss. Something's missing here. And I can't yet put my finger on it. I'll see you all in the next one.